This is Johnny with TigerBomb MMA, and today I'm going to go over UFC Saudi Arabia, Adesanya versus Imavov, giving you my thoughts and predictions. Total of 13 bouts on this Saudi card. And just so you are aware, there's going to be a lot of fuckery on this card, a lot of thievery, so just be 100% prepared when you're thinking about who you're going to bet on. But yeah, we've got Adesanya back after his title fight with Du Plessis, and Imavov making a very good name and account of himself in the middleweight division. You know, he's on a 4-fight winning streak. Now he's going to try to take out a former champion. But in this entire run for Adesanya, he has not lost to anyone who has not held UFC gold. So it's going to be a fascinating main event, 5 rounds. And on top of that, we've got the middleweight debut of Michael Venom Page going up against Mr. I'm going to fuck you over in Saudi Arabia, Shira Bullet Magomedov. So keep in mind, again, Saudi Arabia, there's going to be some messing around with them scorecards, and I'll explain a bit later when it comes to that fight, the co-main event of Magomedov. But I'll get right into it, not even going to talk about the previous card. If you're interested in how my bets went, I did pretty poorly. I actually only won one parlay, which would have been the, not Du Plessis. I call him Du Plessis because they pretty much fight very awkwardly the same, but the Ritter money line, I had Sopai and Tajir, which cashed me out at like a plus 300 or so, roughly. Not bad, but then I had Jamal Hill and a couple other things that did not pan out with Jamal Hill. But getting into this main card here, first fight of the night, we've got a short notice bout. We've got Balaji Oki, the Zulu warrior, fighting Abdul Karim Al-Selwady, the Prince of Palestine. And the odds currently have it, last I checked on Bet Online, dead pick of -110, -110. I was getting hounded all week. I'm like, oh my God. Oki went from like plus 210 to like now -110. So there's money coming in on Oki, and I understand why there's money coming in on Oki, right? He's a strong dude. He's a big guy. He's going to have a reach advantage here of about 4 inches versus Al-Selwady, who on paper, much better fighter. To me, though, cut it short on him. He is a 145er that is fighting at lightweight, and I think he'll do a lot better at 145. The thing is, the reason he's fighting so well at lightweight is that he does have a speed advantage. Generally, he has a cardio advantage. I like to think of him as a discount Merab, but he's a solid dude. He's 15-4. The problem with Al-Selwady, meaning that if he had a better chin, I think he could beat Oki. Just pure volume, takedown attempts, not landed takedowns, but takedown attempts, Merab style. Volume, just the awkwardness, lots of backward movement, lots of lateral movement. He's a solid guy, but when he gets hit, and he gets hit with that death touch type of punch that Oki might land on him, he will go down, and he is one of the funniest dudes to see get knocked out. The guy, I reference him as a cockroach during the like nuclear holocaust. The guy will get bombed tremendously, and sometimes he pops back up. Ultimately, the last fight against, what was his fucking name? I just saw the fight too. Loic. He did not get back up. It was not a good punch. He took a lot of damage. But on short notice, how is Oki's overall game going to be? How's his cardio going to be? His last fight, he was doing really well against Chris Duncan, beating his ass, but he went for an ill-timed takedown. It was just a mental mistake, right? Ultimately, the way I'm seeing it is, I like Al-Selwady in this spot, but it's so, it creeps me out thinking that because he doesn't have a whole ton of power, he will have the grappling upside, but he's going to have to get it to the ground. And Oki's shown decent enough ability to keep it on the feet. He's a strong guy. I expect him to be, very well prepared for Al-Selwady here, because Al-Selwady's not much of a threat when it comes to the punching power. That's only if he gets him to the ground, which with his style, he does back up, which Oki will engage going forward. At this point, if Oki kind of overshoots, gets overly aggressive, Al-Selwady can duck under and get a blast double. But if Oki stays composed and keeps it on the feet, I can see him still landing some decent shots. Ultimately, I think he will eventually land that kill shot. And I think he has those 3 rounds to do it. I don't expect him to necessarily be winning every round. I think he could be definitely losing round 1, 2, maybe coming out really hard on round 3. As long as his cardio holds up, I think he can win this. The way I see it, again, better fighter to me, Al-Selwady, kind of a smaller lightweight. He's going to have, again, height and reach disadvantage against Oki, a very good striker. His striking solid, straight punches. I like what he does. Just that mental lapse and that not insecurity, the lack of experience that he had. He's only 9-2 compared to the 15-4 of Al-Selwady. Al-Selwady's fought much better competition. He's looked better against better competition. For me, Oki, I'm going to go with knockout. I would not touch it. I'll just stay away from it. I am a big fan of betting the first fight of the night just because you kind of rip the Band-Aid off. So for me, I do think that Al-Selwady might last longer. I think his defense is going to hold up until Oki just says, screw it, I'm going for him. So I'll probably take maybe the over 1.5 if I do end up betting it just to stay away. I don't know what those odds are yet. I'll take a look later. But give me Oki to land that knockout punch within round 2 or 3. I think in the beginning, Al-Selwady, as long as he does not get swatted down immediately, I think he can survive at least into the 7-minute mark of the fight. So give me Oki round number 2, late round number 2 to win this fight. Next bout, we have got the return of Hamdi Abdelwahab, plus 110. He's 3-0 versus Jamal Pouges, minus 140. What's hilarious about Pouges, I'm picking Pouges for a variety of different reasons. Hamdi just got, allowed back into the UFC. That's a two years ago. This guy made his debut on short notice against Don'Tale Mayes. And if it wasn't for Don'Tale Mayes being a moron, he would have lost that fight. Ultimately, they overturned it. His win, his split decision, which he won getting takedowns. His striking's not great, but he's very aggressive. He fights fearlessly, which is fascinating. The guy does hit hard. He does have that wrestling background. But with Jamal Pouges, he is a very good fighter. Skill for skill, better than Hamdi. He's a big dude, uses, nice jab, nice teeps to the body, good counter wrestling, good wrestling of his own. The problem with Pouges, and why I can't bet him as a favorite ever, is because despite him being very good, the guy fights incredibly close every time. I can see him getting screwed out of a decision here because he's not active enough. He's going to have faster hands, but he's not much of a knockout threat. He has the better, well-rounded game, knees to the body. He's going to have the better cardio, more than likely. It's just that if Hamdi comes in here juiced up again, I think he can win minutes. I think he can do enough visible damage, quote unquote. And what I mean by that is he will maybe throw a punch that doesn't land, but it's impressive sounding. And again, these judges, Jamal Pouges should not be betting this spot. I think that's a great price tag for him. Had it been, say, give me Jamal Pouges versus who is the bottom of the barrel at heavyweight? Just some shit. He is the bottom of the barrel. Josh Parisian's gone. But Pouges should win this fight, more than likely by a decision. He's a decision artist. Just keep him on the outside, man. Use your fast hands. But do I not think that there's some value on Hamdi via some judge chicanery? But Pouges should win it. But man, I'm telling you, this guy fights so close sometimes, often doesn't do enough. It just bothers me. He I had money on him to beat Thomas Petersen. I thought that was value at plus, I think, 110, 120. And he beat him decisively. But there was moments in that fight that I'm like, dude, what are you doing? You are clearly the better fighter, and you're just letting this guy impose his will on you. Even though his will wasn't very technical, it was so aggressively annoying that he was not aggressive at all. He just kind of stays back. Pouges should win it by decision, but I'm not happy about that entire fight. Next bout, I am intrigued by this one. We've got Bogdan Grad versus Lucas Alexander. The odds, let me check on those. Minus 200 for Bogdan. Lucas Alexander plus 170. That's on Bet Online. Bovada, what I use, is plus 175. Now, I'm going to bet one of these guys. But to start off, we've got the 29-year-old 14-2 Bogdan Grad versus Lucas Alexander, 29 as well, 5'11", 73-inch reach. Fusion XL guy in Lucas Alexander. He trains with good guys in Fusion XL. He trains with guys like, Phil Rowe. That's it. Trains with Phil Rowe. Other guys at Fusion XL with very good grappling. Bogdan Grad, this dude, just made a nice debut in the Contender Series. He beat Michael Aswell. And what's interesting about this guy is that I don't think he should be minus 200. I don't think that at all. I think this guy, if I'm being honest with you, I think this guy sucks. I think this guy got really lucky against Aswell. I think Aswell put numbers on this guy. The thing about MMA judging is that oftentimes, if you are incompetent, you can get away with a lot of stuff. And while I do think that fight was very close, when you look at the numbers, definitely in the favor of Aswell when it comes to the punches. That third round, to me, was 100% Aswell. He had Bogdan essentially hurt to the body. But the thing with Bogdan, though, and I'll reference this back later, sometimes power shots are going to win you a fight. Sometimes, but often, more than not, they're not going to. In my eyes, Bogdan would have lost that one, 29-28, round number 1 and 2 to Aswell. I thought he did very well round number 2. But the problem that I have with Bogdan is that this guy doesn't move his head. He is susceptible to straight punches. He's very wild. He has very unpolished technique. I think he relies too much on his power and his physicality. This guy, to me, has struggled with long dudes. Like, yeah, he made his original debut in the Contender Series against Tom Nolan, but that's a giant dude. Lucas Alexander, though, you might look at him and say, oh, this guy's chinny. He got knocked out by Jasudavicius. The problem with that type of mentality is that he was looking amazing against Saudagi. The problem is he made a mistake. He kind of got back up after getting taken down or in a disadvantageous position, getting back up, let himself open, and Jekka hits fucking hard, okay? It's just he made that mistake. Had that not happened, he would have been the winner in that night. He was piecing them up. This guy's got nice striking. This guy can stuff takedowns. He is very long. He's very straight, very hard combinations. Attacks the body well, attacks the legs well. I think he's going to knock out Bogdan because I think Bogdan is a hype job. Can Bogdan win this fight? Of course, if we have another set of incompetent judges, of course. But in the case of Alexander, the straight punches from Aswell primarily was sticking to a 1-2. But Aswell pillow-fisted as fuck. Lucas, on the other hand, he is not. When he is hurting, when he's landing these straight punches on Bogdan, he's going to hurt him. I feel very confident about Alexander at this plus money. I'm going to bet him as soon as I can, once I can actually get to the casino. But ultimately, I do like Lucas Alexander in the spot to knock him out within 2 rounds. Again, Bogdan, he relies too heavily on being physical, and he relies too heavily on his athleticism. But ultimately, he fights moronically. He leaves himself incredibly exposed. The only issue that I can see with Alexander is that if, say, Bogdan, who does throw power, if Bogdan has learned how to move his head similar to Jiri that we saw a couple nights ago at 311 against Jamal Hill, then, unexpected things can happen. Ultimately, though, I think Lucas Alexander is the play here. At plus money, give me Lucas all day. Straight punches are always going to beat those loopy-ass punches. Bogdan's a bit of I think Bogdan sucks, ultimately. So give me Lucas Alexander to win this one by second-round knockout. Next bout, we have got Jasudavicius versus Mayra Bueno Silva. Silva is plus 175. Comeback on Jasmine is minus 215. So Bueno Silva is moving back down to flyweight after a stunt. Well, technically a stunt, but a stint up in 135 where she was looking great. Not much to really say about here. It's going to be a grappling match. I think there's just so much danger when it comes to Mayra Bueno Silva that it's really difficult to not take a shot on her as a women's MMA, underdog. She is, to me, the better striker. She hits harder. Jiu-jitsu's nasty, but off of her back, if she gets too complacent, if she gets too tired, Jasudavicius is that bitch. But at minus 215, not a big fan at that number. I think she can definitely get on top and definitely survive anything that Mayra Bueno does. But taking her straight on, I don't like that. The way I'm going to attack this fight, because I am very intrigued by it, this to me is a very, very good high-level matchup. We get to see how good Jasmine is and what Mayra Bueno still has left in the tank. She had a couple unfortunate fights. The fight against Pennington was, disappointing. She should have been the champ. Ultimately, she lost to a loser up a weight class. ADHD medication and all. She's a bit disappointing there. The next fight against Macy Chasson, I kind of view that happening here with Jasmine, just a big girl laying on top of her. But I don't think the better fighter won. I just think it was just a bad cut, very, very bad cut that ended up giving Macy the win. Would Bueno have won that fight if the fight wasn't stopped? I'm not 100% sure. I think the tide was still turning to Macy, but we will never know. The way I'm attacking this one is probably going to bet a little bit on Bueno Silva, maybe half a unit, and then try to live bet Jasmine, because I think early on, Mayra Bueno is going to be on the gas. I think she's going to be hitting hard, low kicks. And if Jasmine's incredibly tough. This girl can will herself round number 2, round number 3 to a victory via decision, or possibly even a finish if she can tire out Bueno Silva. Jasmine's front choke game has gotten better, primarily the Darcis and the Anacondas. So I am looking to maybe live bet Jasmine after round number 2. If Bueno Silva starts slowing down in round number 1, off of her back, she's still a very dangerous girl, and she can definitely submit Jasmine. So although I'm not a big fan of this, it's going to be a dog or pass for me, but it's not really. It's kind of like a let's wait and see kind of matchup. So give me Bueno Silva to win this one by a, let's just say, submission in round number 1 or 2. I'll say round number 1, but definitely looking to take advantage of that Jasmine live. Minus 215 early on against a girl who can definitely do some damage early and maybe even submit Jasmine. I don't see any value in that. I do see the value in Jasmine later when she starts, taking over, laying on top of her, doing some massive damage. This girl's big. She's strong. She's not afraid of anything. I like Jasmine a lot. I'm rooting for her, but with my money, not at minus 215, not quite yet. Next bout, we've got one of the more intriguing lightweight bouts here for Ziam versus Mike Davis. Plus 205 on Ziam. Comeback on Mike Davis is a minus 275. To me, it is a dog or pass with your money, because Mike Davis, ultimately, I think Mike is going to win, but there's going to be a lot of potential there and a lot of moments where Ziam can win, or at least give the judges an excuse to give him the rounds. Because with Mike Davis, he's definitely improved a lot. He has gone from primarily a striker, mostly a boxer, to just a well-rounded guy, likes to grapple now, doing some really good work on the ground. Even got his first submission, I believe, in the UFC against Natan Levy. The problem with that Natan Levy fight was, although he dropped him early, Natan Levy did recover in that later round and was getting the better of the position in the grappling against Mike Davis at one point. And the issue with Mike is, although his boxing's fantastic, great hands, massive power, he tends to slow down and he kind of looks a bit off. He likes to bully his opponents. I think if Mike comes in correct, he will look to grapple against Ziam. Ziam's grappling defense has improved, but ultimately it's still not where it needs to be for a big, strong guy like Mike Davis, a guy who's not afraid to get inside, land some hard punches, and then duck under and use his power to take him down. Although Ziam's ability to stuff takedowns, it's definitely improved. You look at the Frevola fight, don't look at the first round, but look after the first round, because Frevola did dominate him at a certain point. Ziam did show very good takedown or submission defense with that guillotine, and later in that fight was showing really good ability to use the wizard to get back up. Very much so using the cage to maintain good position and wall walk back up. And at a certain point, even taking down Frevola. The issue with Mike, though, is that he does slow down. You can attack the body. And I do think that if Ziam, who is the longer of the two guys, probably not necessarily the better striker for sure, but the more diverse with the striking, better knees to the clinch, in the clinch, better low kicks, better kicks in general. Mike Davis is very, very good, but is primarily a boxing type of guy. To me, it's like a dog or pass. I think Ziam, although may not necessarily look impressive, I think he can definitely slow down Mike Davis and get numbers on him. While Mike might have big moments like maybe a slam, getting him down, maybe even some top control, I think Ziam's overall game has improved enough to be able to, get back up, to survive. It's just that if Mike Davis comes out here immediately and just goes for the legs after landing some good body shots, takes him down and submits him, that'd be, disappointing if you have that ticket. I was leaning Mike Davis. I'm going to continue to lean Mike Davis. I'm going to go Davis to win this one by decision, where it's not going to be necessarily pretty for him. It's one of those that you're going to feel kind of dirty that Mike Davis won. But I think money-wise, there's that chance that they're going to probably give it to Ziam if it goes to a decision and if Mike Davis gets tired. So to me, I'm picking Davis via that lean of the more explosive guy with the grappling edge. But if Ziam can keep it on the feet rounds number 2 and survive, Mike Davis will visibly fatigue. He will start tipping that body, keeping it very nicely. And I think he can definitely win those minutes. But what will Mike Davis do to adjust? Will he then again go for top control, back control, get him down? I'm very intrigued by this one just based off of the possibilities that Mike Davis can do. But I do understand the play on Ziam. This to me should be a lot closer. I still lean Davis by a slight margin. I mean, maybe like 2%. But Ziam, with that price tag, probably the best way to go is picking Ziam for money line, that is. Next bout, we've got Terrence McKinney versus Damir Hadzovic. Damir Hadzovic, one of the most one-dimensional guys. Terrence McKinney, we know his chin sucks, but he's going to win this fight. He's probably going to win it by a submission. Let's be real here. He can definitely knock out Damir. That's playing with fire, though. If he just takes him down and submits him, what else do you need? He's minus 350. I think he is a good parlay piece here, for sure. Just be prepared that he gets knocked the fuck out. I just don't see it happening. Damir's Damir, man. I'm still surprised he's in the UFC. Okay. But realistically, if Terrence McKinney takes him down, he is going to be able to choke him out. He's too fast, too explosive. This is like a tailor-made fight for Terrence, a guy that zero grappling, take his ass down, choke him out. I swear to God, if Terrence, because Terrence is that kind of guy that will try to keep it on the feet, trying to get that knockout. He loves the knockout. But come on, dude, like that Ribovic fight was just the icing on the cake of let's try to grapple immediately. Had he done that against Ribovic, he might have survived a little bit longer and maybe suffered a lot less brain damage. But Terrence McKinney, submission round number 1. Do not fuck this up, Terrence. Next bout, we've got Shamil Gaziev versus Thomas Petersen. We've got minus 390 on Gaziev, plus 295 on Petersen. We've got a Russian Mongoloid versus a Minnesotan Mongoloid. Give me the Russian Mongoloid for very, very clear reasons, right? I think Shamil, this is a very good fight for him. I think Thomas is not necessarily a good UFC fighter. He did get his first UFC win against a very, very awkward Usman. I did pick Usman. I lost money on Usman. I thought he was going to do a lot better, but every time Petersen touched him, he like exploded in the judge's faces. Like, ah! I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, Usman? Like, you suck. Petersen wasn't even able to control Usman on the ground. I don't think he's going to be able to take Gaziev down. I think Gaziev, he's a much bigger dude. He hits a lot harder. Gaziev he's a fraud. He gasses out, but he's going to be doing damage on Petersen. Petersen has been knocked out. I think Petersen's striking has improved. He's actually been training with Jamal Pouges. And what I underestimated about Petersen was how good of his striking game it was. His striking game is, but when he's fighting kind of shitty competition against Gaziev, I don't think he's going to have the kind of power to hurt him. If anything, Gaziev's going to have the kind of power to hurt Petersen. I think Gaziev, if he wants to, can take him down. I think he can bully him against the cage. Being the bigger man with the longer reach, give me Gaziev to win this one by a TKO in the later rounds. I am expecting him to handle him just like he did Martin Buday. Buday could not do anything to get him down. And I'm expecting improvements from Gaziev after that ass whooping from Rozenstruick. Again, Petersen, I don't think he is UFC level. I think he can beat certain guys, but if he cannot get the takedown, he seems to be more than content about just using his physicality to move forward and kind of impose his will on guys. But if that doesn't work because the other guy's bigger, like Jamal Pouges was bigger than him, he couldn't get him down or keep him down. I don't think he's going to be able to do that against Gaziev. I think Gaziev is going to crack him, and he's going to be moving back. That's where Gaziev's going to push him against the cage, knee him to the body, just kind of beat him up there. If he takes him down, I'm curious to see how that's going to look. But to me, give me Gaziev to win this one by TKO. Again, Petersen, not impressed by him. Gaziev, he's just a giant Russian Mongoloid. He tends to be the better of the two. His inbredness is just going to outweigh Thomas Petersen's Paul Walter Hauser look-alike contest looking motherfucker. So give me the Russian Mongoloid to beat the U.S. Mongoloid. Next bout, we have got Mongoloid. Mohamed Naimov versus Khan Ofli. Minus 250 for Naimov. Comeback on Ofli is plus 200. So to speak the positives of Ofli, because I'm fading Ofli here. I'm going to take Naimov. But the plus 200 is tempting if he is able to maybe get the back and try to go for a submission on Naimov, because he is a very good jiu-jitsu practitioner. Black belt in jiu-jitsu, a very solid guy. I think in this matchup, it's not a good matchup for him. I thought the previous matchup against Myron Santos, I thought that was a better matchup for him because if he could get it to the ground. I've seen Myron in The Ultimate Fighter kind of get dominated at one point, and I think if Khan would have gotten him to the ground, he would have definitely had some success here. Ultimately, Myron was just too big, just way too big, dude. Like, this guy had trouble making weight. He looked much bigger than him. His striking was just too much. With Naimov, I expect a bit of the similar, his ability to keep it on the feet. I think he's the much harder striker. I think he's a more diverse striker. Khan, a bit too small, I believe, for 145. Like, he's 5'7" against a 5'9" in Naimov. And the last fight that Naimov had, he was doing really well against Felipe Lima, a guy who I think is going to go far in that division. And ultimately, it was Lima using his just well-roundedness and just being a better fighter than Khan Ofli, let's be honest, and took his back and choked him out. Can Khan get a similar situation on him? Possible, yes. He's a very good grappler. Naimov, though, he's going to be juiced to the gills, all right? Like, this guy may not be popping, but this guy is juiced up. I don't think he's going to win, or I don't think he's going to lose in Saudi Arabia. I don't think he's going to lose at all. I think if he prays on his way to the cage, ain't no fucking way he's losing this one. I think all he has to do is really maintain the fight on the feet, use his long-range weapons. I think he can crack Ofli, because Ofli got knocked the fuck out his last fight. That was a vicious knockout. And although, 4 months ago, those types of knockouts are really hard to recover from, that I do think that Muhammad can land something. Again, ultimately keep it on the feet. I will pick him by a decision here. I am considering him by a decision, and then more than likely just taking the money line and parlaying that up. But yeah, Ofli, although he's a very good fighter, I just think it's a worse matchup for him than Myron Santos. Realistically, at least on paper, Myron Santos was a better matchup. Fight night, when he's all, hydrated, way terrible matchup. So yeah, give me Naimov juice to the gills to win this one by decision. Next up, we've got Ikram Aleskirov versus Andre Muniz. I hate the line here on Aleskirov at minus 550, Muniz plus 400. So the plus 400, this is the type of matchup similar to the Peyton Talbot and Ione Barcelos type of matchup where the line is tempting. Those who actually took Barcelos, beautiful on you. I did not take it. I even talked myself out of it. I'm like, nah, it's not going to happen, because I think eventually this dude's going to knock him out. If I'm being honest with you, though, as much as I'm happy that Barcelos won, I think the dude was on the special acai sauce, because he looked way better than ever. And I was very surprised. And I don't think that Talbot sucks that bad. And I think he sucks a lot, especially, when he's with Frank Ocean. But when it comes to Muniz here, the plus 400, it's one of those lines that if you were to take and you were to show off, like, yeah, Andre Muniz to win plus 400 or by sub, it's going to look great when you get it right, because there is a chance he could win this. slim, but I think Aleskirov is definitely going to knock him out. I think Aleskirov, his last fight, people are going to be counting him out because he got knocked out by a former champion, and he got knocked out bad by Robert Whittaker. Aleskirov, the positives are not the line. The line's terrible, but the positives are he hits pretty damn hard. Very good 1-2. Great wrestling, great sambo. Submission threat. This guy is well-rounded up the wazoo, but his chin has always been a bit of an issue for me. When it comes to Muniz's striking, it's okay, but Muniz slows down tremendously, and that's always been an issue. And what it came down to me is that if you're losing to Paul Craig at middleweight, you are a fraud. If you are losing to Paul Craig in the grappling, you are a fucking fraud. If you get TKO'd by Paul Craig at middleweight, you're a fraud. And I think he frauded his way. I think he defrauded a bunch of people. This guy looked good early, but when you stand up to him, when you can definitely stay away from those submission threats, he is 100% kind of a fish waiting to get his brain smashed in. That's a common thing that happens out in Antarctica, where you bash seals' heads in. I think that's going to be him. I think he's going to be a seal on the ground getting his head bashed in by Aleskirov. Aleskirov's striking pretty rudimentary, but he is prone to throw a very nice 1-2, and then like we saw against Warley Alves, he'll go for a flying knee. I don't expect him to get taken down. I think he's going to be the one doing the control. I think it's going to be on Aleskirov keeping it on the feet, landing his straight punches against Muniz. Muniz can maybe crack him, but again, if Muniz doesn't do so, if he can't get him to the ground, I expect him to slow down, tire out, and Aleskirov to take over rounds number 2 or 3. So give me Aleskirov to actually get a TKO round number 3. I think Muniz will be tired. I can actually even see Aleskirov submitting him. But ultimately, Aleskirov round number 3. Give me a tired Muniz. After that knockout, I do expect Aleskirov to, try to play it a bit safe and just use long-range weapons, maybe clinch up a bit, and just kind of test out how strong Muniz is early, and just be safe on that end, and then later on chip away at him until he TKOs him in the third. But yeah, give me Aleskirov to win this one. Not like rocket science, but it is tempting to think that maybe Muniz can do something, maybe finish him. So if you were to more than likely take a shot on Muniz, I would think it's going to be via finish, because the only way I can see him winning a decision would be if he hurts Aleskirov multiple times, but he doesn't finish him. So yeah, ultimately give me Aleskirov by a third round TKO. Next bout, bantamweight bout, Said Nurmagomedov versus Vinicius Oliveira. Minus 185 for Nurmagomedov, Vinicius plus 150. And I have my thoughts about this one, and I am still up in the air as to how I'm going to play it, because I do want to play this bout. But Said, we know about him, great guillotine game, great kicker, lots of movement, uses his distance incredibly well. He, in this spot, will be the smaller guy. He often is the taller dude with the longer reach, but he's going to be at a slight height and reach disadvantage here by an inch in height and a half inch in reach. Oliveira, the dude is athletic, he is strong, he's joking around about taking steroids on his Instagram. The dude fights with his hands low. He fights with incredible confidence. He walks his opponents down. We've seen him get a nasty knockout against Bernardo Sopai. The issues I have with Oliveira is that this guy fights like a moron sometimes, and that's always an issue for me. Even against Ricky Simone, there was moments there where Ricky could have won. He could have taken over, but he just fought even more like an idiot than Oliveira. Oliveira even hurt his own leg. But the way I'm looking at it is there is a lot of value in Oliveira. Although this is the hardest matchup he has fought in a while, I think he is definitely the harder of the two. The punching power is going to be there. I think Nurmagomedov doesn't tend to knock his opponents out. Again, he has decent striking, decent punches. Kicks are where he's at. He likes to keep that distance. Both these guys like their distance. So it's going to be at a range type of fight. And to me, the guy who hits the harder is going to be the winner, and I think that's Oliveira. If I'm being honest, man, Nurmagomedov, he looks very frail often, and when you look at Vinicius, this dude looks like he could fight at 145. Nurmagomedov looks like he needs like multiple sandwiches to make 145. Like he looks so frail, and he uses that body and that speed to just beat up smaller guys. Now he's fighting a guy that arguably is a weight bully. So I'm leaning Oliveira here because when I look at the fight against Nurmagomedov and Jonathan Martinez didn't necessarily do anything special other than just kind of use his size. Despite him being the shorter guy, he used his size in the clinch, kneed him up, took him down. The problem with taking down Nurmagomedov is that if you take him down the wrong way, he will choke you out with that ninja choke. Oliveira, I think he's going to be very experienced, but there's going to be a lot of moments there where I believe he's going to make mistakes, and I am worried about that. But I'll take a shot on him at plus 150. Not a big shot, just again, I'm a little worried. This is one of those that it's going to feel like you missed out or that you're an idiot because the talking points will be like, yeah, of course, Oliveira is a 145er fighting at like bantamweight. Of course, he's going to be bullying this guy around. Or it's going to be, well, of course, Vinicius lost because he's fighting a much better fighter with a true proven track record at 135. And it could go either way, honestly. Give me Oliveira to win this one. Give me a decision. Again, I think he hits harder. I think he's going to be the more physical of the two. Nurmagomedov, not really known to get knockout punches unless it's like a spinning elbow. Vinicius has been knocked out. It tends to be from guys that hit hard, like Ali Taleb. And on top of that, I think he's just so athletic. He's so dynamic that if he makes the proper adjustments, he can definitely look better than ever against Said. But if he keeps fighting the same way, just like a moron, he fights very similar in my eyes to a Randy Brown from back in the day. Like he kind of taunts a little bit. He just throws things very awkward and wild. Not a big fan of that, but I think that will benefit him here because, again, both men like to keep the distance. Oliveira attacks the legs, hits harder, just kind of slow down Nurmagomedov, who will definitely slow down because he uses so much movement and momentum just to kind of like use his footwork. So give me Oliveira by a decision. But again, with that last name, if this becomes very close, if it becomes a split decision, even if you lose because they're going to give it to Magomedov, I'd rather have the plus money ticket. So give me Vinicius Oliveira, kind of using that physicality to win this fight via decision. Next bout, we've got heavyweight bout, Sergey Pavlovich versus Jairzinho Rozenstruick. Minus 245 on Pavlovich, come back on Rozenstruick is plus 195. So looking at this bout, the obvious would be Sergey's going to knock out Jairzinho Rozenstruick. Is that truly the case? Yes, I think it is. I think Pavlovich, he hits too hard. So against Alexander Volkov, his last fight, Volkov stayed incredibly disciplined on the outside, using his length advantage, the kicking game. Although he did get cracked a few times by Pavlovich, because Pavlovich is primarily just a boxer. It made it difficult for Pavlovich to kind of close that gap with the lateral movements of Alexander Volkov. And on top of that, it's just the jab game of Volkov was on point, busting up Pavlovich. He just wasn't able to make those proper adjustments. And with the fight with Aspinall, he did hit Aspinall, didn't knock him out, didn't rock him, but the speed and the footwork of Aspinall was what really put Sergey down. I don't necessarily think it was the hardest punch. It was just a perfectly timed punch. Jairzinho Rozenstruick, great counter striker, great kicker. Problem is he does back himself up, and he is also known to freeze up, hence calling him Frozen Strike. With Pavlovich, though, I'm expecting something different, and I might have a hot take here for you against Rozenstruick. Pavlovich, he's on a 2-fight losing streak, so he 100% needs this win. If he were to come out here and just bum rush Jairzinho Rozenstruick, there's too much of a, it could definitely win and pan out in his favor. You look at the guys that Rozenstruick has fought recently, like Tai Tuivasa, they had a little back and forth fight. Rozenstruick completely dominated that fight, but he didn't knock him out. There's only one guy that really put him out cold. Well, I guess not cold because Tai never gets pulled out cold, but enough to be like a convincing knockout, and that was Sergey Pavlovich. He hits that hard. Jairzinho's chin, never been a fan of it, especially when he's fighting super hard hitters. And I think Pavlovich has already fought a guy, not necessarily the same as Rozenstruick, but very similar with body style and height, and that's going to be Black Beast. With Rozenstruick, again, he backs himself up against the cage. putting him in prime position for Pavlovich. So if Pavlovich does rush forward when he's against the cage, he can catch him with an uppercut, just hit him with something hard. But my hot take about this fight is Pavlovich needing a win. There's a specific aspect of Pavlovich's game that kind of gets overlooked, and that's his ground and pound. So what I'm thinking is Pavlovich will actually look to shoot for a takedown, an unexpected takedown on Rozenstruick. And it doesn't have to be a good, like, oh my God, he's going to be a collegiate athlete, a future wrestler. Just run him over. Use your power, use your size, learn to adjust. I'm telling you, had he maybe attempted a takedown on Volkov, maybe it wouldn't have been successful, but it would have done something different. It would have made Volkov a little bit more weary. Maybe Volkov would have adjusted with knees up the middle, but showing that takedown against, in this case, Rozenstruick will make him a bit more tentative, more so than he already is sometimes. So with that massive power, I don't expect Rozenstruick to be throwing much. I think he's going to try to look to counter. I don't necessarily think that Rozenstruick is going to hit incredibly hard against Pavlovich. If they both collide, I think it's Pavlovich's power that's going to hurt Rozenstruick more so than Pavlovich is getting hurt. So I'm looking for Pavlovich to actually look to shoot for a takedown here and more than likely get it and try to work his ground and pound. Break up that monotony of the feet if it becomes a little bit too close. I'm expecting Pav to shoot here. So I might even look at what the Pavlovich over 0.5 takedowns is. I'm assuming because no one's expecting it, it's going to be a good plus money line, so I'll take a look. I don't expect Jairzinho to shoot. He's not going to be able to get it on Pav. He's got solid takedown defense. We're all expecting two strikers to go at it, but ultimately with the need for a win, I need Pavlovich to do something different. I think he knows that. I think his team knows that. And what's the best way to surprise people? Try to take Rozenstruick down and pound his head into the mat. So give me Pavlovich to knock out Rozenstruick within the first 2 rounds. I'm thinking round number 2. There is always that likelihood that Pav just says, screw it, I'm going to knock him out. Bum rushes him, gets him against the cage. He is the white Ngannou, and Ngannou knocked him out in a similar fashion. But if he is very concerned about having 3 in a row of losses, I think he's going to take his time. Second round comes out, shoots for the takedown, busts him up. So yeah, give me Pavlovich by our second round TKO. Next bout, we've got Michael Venom Page at 185 versus Shira Bullet Magomedov. Minus 180 for Shira. Come back on Venom Page is plus 150. So the temptation of Michael Venom Page at plus 150 is through the roof for me, man. So he is, to me, the better point fighter. And Shira, although a good point fighter himself, mostly with the kicks, he's finally fighting a guy with a high enough striking credential and pedigree, similar size to him. And it's so good of a line that you can't necessarily ignore it at plus 150 for Michael Venom Page. The issue here is that Shira is 15-0. He's fighting in Abu Dhabi, more or less Saudi Arabia, the only place really that he can fight, other than, I guess, Abu Dhabi. But he is a hot commodity there, and it's going to be very difficult to beat him on the cards. Michael's going to have to knock him out to really win, because I go back and I watch that fight with Armen Petrosian, and I think Petrosian's up on the scorecards. Turns out he was not. He was not up in the scorecards. He was losing that fight despite the fact that I thought he was winning and doing well. And that's what's going to be the worst thing against Michael Venom Page, is that if he cannot get a finish against Shira Bullet, he is going to lose on the scorecards. All Magomedov has to do is one of two things. If Michael Venom Page isn't landing the volume and he's landing the power, then all Magomedov has to do is land the volume. The judges will then say, well, although Magomedov is bleeding and he can't see out of his good eye, he did land more punches, so we have to give it to him. Split decision Shira. If the opposite happens, it's Page landing the volume and Magomedov landing the harder strikes. Well, at that point, it's like, well, no duh, he landed the harder strikes. Magomedov's going to win. So it is such an anomaly type of fight. Michael Venom Page moving up to 185, that is a whole weight class up, 15 extra pounds. with Shira Bullet, although not much of a grappler himself, I wouldn't necessarily hate it if he tries to go for a takedown against Michael Page. We've seen the guy get taken down by a guy similar height in Ian Gary and get dominated there. I don't fully expect that from Shira. Man, it's just so hard to pick against him. I expect him to win this decision. I expect him to win it via BS decision. It's just if Michael Page can catch him. I mean, the thing with Magomedov as well is that even though I thought he was losing that fight against Petrosian, he did make some good adjustments in the second round. And that spinning double back fist bullshit, ridiculous. Michael Page, not necessarily known for having the greatest chin as well. He's up there in age at 37. It's just, to me, realistically, it's going to be one of those, like, Michael Page looks like he won the fight, his hands up. He's like, he's got his stupid fucking, post-fight antics ready to go, and then they announce Shira the winner via split decision. He's like, what? Oh my God, I thought I won the fight. So it's just, stay away, really. I'm not a big fan of this one. I'm a fan of watching it and see what happens, because I do want to see Michael Page win this fight. I do. I want him to win. I want to have money on him to win. I just don't feel confident enough that he's going to win if it hits the scorecards, if he doesn't knock him out. So, yeah, give me Magomedov by a slimy decision here. And then main event here, Israel Adesanya versus Nasruddin Imavov. Minus 185 for the last stylebender, the sniper, plus 150. And while doing my research on it, I was very impressed by Nasruddin and his run. He's on a 4-5 win streak. I do count the Chris Curtis win. And he has looked impressive. He's gone 5 rounds multiple times. And his cardio is a bit, hit and miss sometimes. He looks like he's incredibly gassed in certain fights, and then other fights, it looks like he has enough in the tank to keep going. Primarily that fight against Jared Cannonier, where he was ripping at him. He was throwing hard up until the finish at that point, but even in between rounds, he's looking exhausted. So even though he does get tired and he does fatigue, he does still throw very powerful strikes. The issue with him in this fight is that this is the first time he's fighting a champion. I don't count that fight with Sean Strickland, because that was a developmental, I was going to say developmentally challenged, but it was a Sean Strickland that had yet to truly develop his championship level style. He wasn't known for throwing kicks at that time. That was the first time he actually started throwing teeps up the middle, and now that is what completed him into a belt holder. So I don't count that as a champion. Adesanya, though, this guy has fought for most of his UFC career in championship level fights. He's gone back and forth. What's interesting about the fight with Duplessis is that I don't think that fight was being scored accurately. I had money on Duplessis. I'm happy with the outcome. But if I'm being honest, those rounds were being scored all over the place. I think Adesanya was looking better than ever. He was doing stuff in that fight that just... He was composed, given the back and forth between them, the tension between those two men, the amount of new things that I saw from him, his ripping to the body, fantastic. He was way more aggressive. He used his reach better than ever while still being aggressive, was great. Minus 185 for him here, although he's on a 2-fight losing streak. I go back and I watched that third fight again, or that third round against Duplessis, and he looked fantastic. I thought he was going to finish him eventually, because I also had money on doesn't go past the 4th round. So I was like, somebody better finish some motherfucker right now. But he was looking great, man. Like, that was 5 months ago. Yes, he got taken down. Yes, he got submitted. But eventually, Dricus is going to Dricus, man. And when I'm looking at the scorecards, they pretty much gave every round to Dricus. There was like maybe round number 1 was split. One judge gave it to Adesanya. I would have given it to him. The third round, which I thought was going to be across the board, one idiot gave it to Dricus. That was Adesanya's best round, and then ultimately it was Dricus that was the victor in the 4th, despite, I think, Adesanya just doing very well and very good work. The way I see this fight is that Nasruddin, he's going to match Adesanya early on. He's going to match him up with the striking. He's very good at pullback counters. He's very good at moving forward, very good lateral movement. I think ultimately Imavov is a high-level, top 5 fighter currently. But despite the fact that it's a 35-year-old Adesanya in his twilight of his career, he's still that good. He is still high level. I think he is still capable of winning a belt if he wanted to. I just don't think he's going to because of, some boogeyman coming up. Adesanya, to me, I think he's going to probably win this one by a pretty comfortable decision after round number 2. Round number 1, it's going to be a little back and forth. Do I see Imavov having some success early on? Yeah. I think his best shot is to knock out Adesanya, but if Adesanya starts using his length, because he's going to be the longer guy, I think obviously he's fought the much better competition. Only losses are in the UFC to champions and belt holders. On top of that, he has fought guys like Alex Pereira, Politan, and he got rocked, he got TKO'd, but if he took that left hook, I don't think Imavov's going to be able to hurt him that bad. Took shots from Duplessis, maybe got rocked a few times here and there, but composed himself. The feint game's going to be there. Attacking the body is going to be the key for Adesanya to win this fight. Imavov will slow down. He uses a lot of movement, and eventually he's going to be whiffing on punches, and it's just going to be one of those Adesanya matchups where he just does enough to win, and then if he does want to push the pace while he's the fresher guy after round number 3 or 4, he might be able to try to get a finish via TKO to the body. I think Nasruddin has a very good chin, so it's going to be hard to knock him out. Crazier things have happened, though. Adesanya not really known to have heavy-ass hands, but it is what it is. But I do like Adesanya in this spot. I do like him in this price as well. Him being just the more complete of the two. I think it's a lot harder for Imavov to get a guy to replicate Adesanya and his feint game and his movement, his awkwardness, than it is for Adesanya to get a guy to imitate Imavov. He has a ton of those guys at City Kickboxing. Just fucking get to Oldberg to fight like him. A much bigger dude, longer reach. I like Adesanya in this spot. This is one of those, like, if Adesanya is not completely washed, he's going to win this fight. And that title fight with Duplessis, it showed me that he's still elite and that he can definitely beat, these up-and-coming guys. Imavov, I don't think he'll ever touch the title. I think even with his fight against Brendan Allen, he looked improved, but there were moments in that fight where Brendan was like landing on him. I'm like, dude, Brendan Allen, you really letting this dude beat your ass? Give me Adesanya to use his array of weaponry. If he gets clinched up, he'll reverse attack the body at distance, keep the body, punch the body. I think counter-wise, Adesanya is still going to be the cleaner of the two. He's going to have the better cardio. Moving on, Adesanya been in 5-round fights multiple times. He's fought multiple guys that are better at wrestling and grappling than Imavov and are better at striking than Imavov. So yeah, give me Adesanya to win this one by a decision. That is, to me, one of my favorite plays. Might end up biting me in the ass if it is his time, Adesanya's time. He gets knocked out or he gets finished or some bullshit. It's going to suck. I've never been an Izzy fan, but just straight eye test, I am not seeing that ultimate decline. I just think that he has fought an array of fighters, and because there's so much tape on him, it's a lot easier to kind of pinpoint what you can do to try to disrupt that. You look at guys like Sean Strickland beating him up. Sean's that good. He will do the same to Imavov again. And that was a very, again, not complete version of the complete version of Strickland now that is a champion level fighter. And Dricus would probably finish Imavov in the first 2 rounds. Dricus will always Dricus. So again, Adesanya by a decision is my play. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments in regards to this card. Let me know what you think in regards to the judging and how you think it's going to be, because I do recall out in the desert where there was a specific guy by Carlos Leal that everyone fucking loved. Everyone's like, hey, he's going to beat the shit out of Renat Fakhretdinov. And I said, ain't no way in hell he's going to lose the decision. Ain't no fucking way. And then no one listened, and then the judges gave it to Renat after he did lose that fight, and everyone was butthurt. That's my biggest concern about these cards, specifically dictated to give these more or less hometown guys the benefit of the doubt. And that's what always scares me when picking against a specific guy with an Av or the name Muhammad in their name. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below. Johnny TigerBomb, I will see you in the next card.